All right, guys, so let's talk about the Black Label Player. The Black Label Player is a bait that I have been working on for a, a really long time to get to where I felt like it was just right. But what the Black Label Player is, and the reason I named it the Player, is the Black Label Player to me is a super realistic shad style bait that is not limited to just live scope or forward facing sonar, but it's absolutely very useful for that. This is the Black Label Player right here. I've got several different colors laid out. We'll get up here where you can really get a good look at it. And you can see, I mean, it looks, it feels, it quivers. It's as close to a shad as I feel like you could possibly get. As a matter of fact, I almost named this bait the synthetic shad because that's really what it is. Um, when I designed this bait, what I basically did was start with a live, just a shade under 3-inch thread fin shad that I actually went and snagged on a jerk bait. It took me about an hour, and took a micrometer and took a tremendous amount of pictures of it, and started working on getting this bait drawn and designed, and then started adding features to the bait to give the bait some lifelike movement. But the main reason that I wanted this bait, for those of y'all that do a lot of forward facing sonar, um, you know, with forward facing sonar, you see a fish, you present a lure to that fish, and the fish either tells you yes or it tells you no. And that's going to happen no matter what lure you have. I'm not saying that this bait will catch every fish you throw it at, because there's no bait yet. We don't have that yet that will trigger every fish to bite. But this gives me the confidence that I'm showing that bait something, that showing that fish a bait that is as realistic as it can possibly be. And you can see just me holding the player, it won't be still. But the player doesn't have a paddle tail style. It's just a super thin shad style body. It's got the two little rings at the tail. And I don't know how well you can see it, but on the side, I've actually got a step out line that runs down each side of the bait right along here that's actually a slight bit wider. It's a V piece that sticks out. And as the water pushes along this bait, it hits that V section, it hits the little notch outs on the tail, and it makes this shad tail do just what I'm doing right here in the picture. And it just creates the super subtle natural swimming action that you need sometimes when those fish will just, they won't commit to a stronger bait. They won't commit to a paddle tail bait. They won't commit to a jerk bait style bait. They won't commit to a lot of things. And not only just casting this bait, but this bait's also extremely good fish vertically. A lot of y'all, it's been termed Damiki style fishing by a lot of people because the Damiki was the original bait. It's a good bait too. This bait is also a really good alternative for that style of fishing. But as far as rigging this bait is concerned, normally I like to rig the player on a relatively light jig head. This is a 1/8, depending on how deep I'm fishing. If I'm casting this bait, two fish that I can see on my screen, and I'm basically reeling that bait and just kind of shaking my rod tip a little bit, causing that bait to dance and quiver and make that tail flutter. The lighter the jig head that you use, the more action you're going to be able to put on the bait, and the slower you're going to be able to fish the bait. So 10 foot of water or less on calmer days, I'm going to normally always go with an 1/8. I will step it up to a quarter or even a 3/8, but this is the jig head that I really like. This is a Boss Mini Swim, and I like the fact that this jig head is, for one, it's very streamlined, so it fits. It's not like you have a real natural thin shad profile with a big egg round head on it. It fits the shape of the bait really well. It matches to the shape of the bait really well. That's important to me because it lets more water get to the body of the bait to make all those features that I told you about as effective as they can be. If you put this on a real wide round head, you have to keep in mind that you're blocking some of the water flow from getting to the little side fins and from getting to the tail. So I like the streamline aspect. The other thing I really like is the fact this jig head is a screw lock. A couple things about the screw lock. For one, the screw lock holds the bait extremely well. And this bait, you know, it's got enough meat in the nose of it that the screw lock obviously fits in it. But the other thing is, you know, a lot of times when you get a school of fish fired up and you see six or six, you know, a handful of fish under some bait or on a specific target, and you throw to them, you'll get that initial rush, and you'll think a fish has got it, and the fish really doesn't. And we've all done it. You pull too quick. If you're just using a jig head that doesn't have a really good keeper, a lot of times when you pull, you foul up your bait. The screw lock helps that not to happen. So if you pull the first time and miss it so often, you can drop it back, and the next one in line will just choke it. So I really like the screw lock bait, screw lock head design. The other thing I like about this is the fact that all the weight on this jig head is to the forward. There's no weight running down the shank. So if I'm fishing it vertically, like we are talking about a while ago, this jig head with a 90-degree hook helps that bait hang as level as it can possibly be. And that's really important to me, especially in those real cold water, real hard to get a bite situations, that bait is as level as it can possibly be, because it's just like a jerk bait. You get it out of level, it doesn't look natural. Those fish are kind of lethargic anyway. You're just not going to get as many bites. So that's the perfect jig head to rig it on. Now the other thing that the player is really good for, I have this one rigged on a little hover style hook right here, and the bait has just enough meat that I can get that hover style hook in it. The cool thing about this is the flat parts of this bait, along with the real thin tail, when you rig it like this, when you cast it, it's going to just glide. It's going to just drift. It's going to look like a dying or wounded or injured shad. But this is the Black Label Player. This thing, guys, this thing is live scope candy. This is a bait that I don't feel like there's a more realistic version of a soft bait shad that's being manufactured currently. This is a bait that I've got 8 or 9 months invested into developing. I've got a stack of prototype molds on my desk that are head tall from changing this and changing that to finally get it exactly the way I like it. Got some real sexy natural colors here, some good shad colors. This is the one that I'm calling Matte Shad. This is Smoking Hologram, Electric Shad, Baby Gizzard, French Pearl, and of course you got to have Sexy Shad. And this is just a start. These are some of the first ones that I'm making. These will be probably my 6 entry-level colors, but definitely will do more colors. But that's the Black Label Player. If you're into fishing, you know, finessey stuff with forward-facing sonar, or even without forward-facing sonar, you know, the rigs like this with the hover rig, you can take this and just go down the bank with it. You don't even have to be playing the video game. But the video game player, that's why I named it the Player. This is the bait that I made for the video game fishing that we've all gotten so addicted to, that technology has given us all on our boats for the most part. You want to throw a bait at them that looks just like a shad, I'm just telling you, this is it. This is just like a shad. It's just, you physically can't make it any more like a shad than what the Player is.